Ridiculous.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is pronounced Siobhan Ciresi. I am here representing Long Island Skywatch. My question is, do we want our Earth and atmosphere to remain intact as a life support system, or do we want it to be a physics laboratory for military and private interests? Complete with global dimming due to sunlight reduction, soil pH changes, increasing water and air pollution, reduced vitamin D production, human health decline.
Siobhan, I gotta interrupt you.
Yes.
The signs have to disappear.
Okay. Okay. Those are. This is not cutting into my time right now, is it?
Yes, your clock is running.
Okay. Well, I get an extra 30 seconds for it. Okay. So lower crop production, dead and dying trees, photosynthesis problems, and the list goes on. This is the choice we are faced with as humans, and modifying the atmosphere, and whether intentionally through geoengineering and unintentionally through aviation and pollution. I am here today in support of IR 2029, a local law to protect air quality in Suffolk County, which places restrictions on the intentional disbursement of barium, sulfur, salts, and aluminum oxide into the air. These chemicals listed in Mr. Romaine's proposal are currently being promoted for geoengineering solar radiation management schemes on a global level and are referred to in numerous United States patents for weather modification technologies and methods dating as far back as the 1930s. What is geoengineering? According to the 2009 Royal Society report titled Geoengineering, Science, Governance, and Uncertainty, it is the, quote, deliberate large-scale manipulation of the planetary environment to counteract anthropogenic climate change. Geoengineering proposals aim to intervene in the climate system by deliberately modifying the Earth's energy balance, end quote. Geoengineering, also referred to as climate remediation, weather modification, and solar radiation management, is already underway in the United States, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the United States Navy, and NASA, and several other countries, including Germany, India, Russia, and the UK, who are exploring or, quote, moving ahead with their own climate remediation efforts, according to the 2011 Bipartisan Policy Center's Task Force on Climate Remediation. Between 2009 and 2010, the U.S. House Committee on Science and Technology held hearings discussing the implications of large-scale climate intervention, the scientific basis and engineering challenges, and domestic and international research governance. These are the titles of their meetings. As discussions about geoengineering have already taken place at the federal level of government, likewise, this reality needs to be discussed by the local levels of government and public hearings made available. Being that geoengineering affects the planetary climate and weather patterns, the public at the local levels must have the ability to accept or reject such experiments and programs in their own communities. According to John Holdren, director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, quote, there are a variety of schemes that have been discussed for geoengineering. A classic example is injecting reflecting particles into Earth orbit, end quote. It is these programs which I will be addressing today. Solar radiation management, or SRM, involves deliberately injecting particles, chemicals, or gases into our upper atmosphere to decrease the amount of direct sunlight reaching the Earth to mask or reverse the effects of climate change. These schemes include cloud whitening experiments using salts and other particulates, injecting metal oxides into the atmosphere, and putting more water vapor, a potent greenhouse gas, into the atmosphere to create man-made artificial clouds. SRM models include stratospheric sulfate injections and the spraying of 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum oxide and other aerosols into our atmosphere for the stated goal of cooling the planet, as documented at the American Association for the Advancement of Science Conference in 2010. According to the Bipartisan Task Force on Climate Remediation Research, quote, although SRM may be able to mask some impacts of greenhouse gases on the climate system, it would do nothing to deal with the chemical consequences of increased CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere, end quote. This can be likened to suppressing symptoms of an illness while not addressing the root causes. Thus, the system remains sick, but the illusion of wellness is what we get. Simultaneously, we are in the midst of a global dimming. In 2003, NASA scientists reported that the Earth is 20% darker. A report issued by the International Osteoporosis Foundation in 2009 showed that populations across the globe are suffering from the impact of low levels of vitamin D. The problem is widespread and on the increase, with potentially severe repercussions for overall health and fracture rates. Aluminum is a neurotoxin in humans. Prolonged exposure can impair cognitive function and lead to motor dysfunction. Barium salts are very toxic, and if ingested, have a strong stimulating effect on all muscles, including the heart. Excessive barium poisoning can lead to vomiting, diarrhea, convulsive tremors, and increased blood pressure, according to the EPA. According to our own New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, high concentrations of sulfates can enter the cardiovascular respiratory systems, resulting in disease or even death, and leach metals from soils in the form of acid rain. Ultimately, geoengineering affects all of us, and thus information needs to be made widely available to the public, and programs voted on by the public before the implementation of any such schemes. Thank you.
Yeah!
James Polish.